Hey Mav, and hello Internet! Welcome to Dear Mav, a vlog dedicated to keeping in touch with my younger brother Maverick. And today we are going to pick up where we left off with my last video about my most recent sightseeing adventure. So if you have not seen it, I highly recommend you do, because otherwise you will probably be very confused. Let's get started. So, quick recap, I met my friend, and that was about as far as we got last time, wasn't it? Sorry. It was early afternoon, so we decided to go and get some lunch. We started walking, and my domi said that if we walked just a bit down the street, we would run into a district with lots of restaurants, and once we got there, we could pick a place. I then conveyed my understanding, and we chatted a bit as we walked. For the record, the whole time we were together, we only spoke Korean, so anytime I paraphrase our conversations, please keep in mind that they are in Korean, not in English, because unfortunately, fortunately, my domi is not fluent in English, which is great for practicing Korean, but for actually communicating, sometimes gets a little frustrating. So just keep that in mind, I guess. It was about 5 minutes later, the conversation had lulled into a comfortable silence when I looked around and realized that there were no restaurants in sight. We were in some kind of hipster district. That's the only way I can describe it. All the buildings were unique clothing shops and little arts and crafts stores with do-it-yourself pottery and stuff. I then remembered that the Korean idea of a short walk away is very different from my idea of a short walk away. I think in total we walked about 25 minutes. On the way, my friend asked if I had ever tried something. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the food, sorry, but I do remember that I didn't know what it was. So when she asked that and I said no, then she was all like, oh, we definitely have to get that. And I was like, cool man, sounds good to me. I'm starving. And apparently we talk like this. I sincerely apologize for what just happened. So, we finally get to this restaurant, and the line was stretching out the door and around the corner. Now, I have no idea what kind of restaurant this was, nor do I know what kind of food they served, but I know that I did not feel like waiting in that line at that moment on that particular day, because I was too hungry to wait that long for food. No. I don't care if it was deep fried caviar dipped in chocolate, which actually sounds really disgusting, and I'd rather just have a Big Mac. Maybe use some soup. I like soup. I had a dream about soup the other day. I didn't plan on saying that. For the record, the dream was about having soup for breakfast when I was really cold. We were at a restaurant and Professor Snape was there, and it was the only available table, so I could either have the soup right then but sit with Professor Snape or wait, and I don't like waiting. Anyway, it was pretty funny actually. When that line came into sight, my domi and I both exchanged a silent look and immediately veered around that line and kept walking. We didn't even have to say anything, which is convenient for me because that's difficult to do in Korean. We actually ended up going to a restaurant not even a block over, one of those ones where you have to take off your shoes. When we were removing said shoes, I noticed that off to the side, in the wall, was a tiny staircase. It was very narrow, and it had From the angle that I was at, I could only see 3 very steep steps. I stared at it, wondering where it could possibly go, when the waitress came over and told us to follow her up the stairs. Somehow I was both excited like a child because my curiosity was about to be sated, and shocked that the staircase was somewhere we, as patrons, could go. These two emotions collided on my face and must have resulted in a very interesting expression because my friend stared at me like I was crazy. Maybe it was the fact that I was just standing there and not following the waitress and my friend. But you never know. What was upstairs, you ask? Seating. Duh. There were 2 small rooms upstairs, each equipped with about 2 or 3 of those small tables that you have to sit on the floor to utilize, and our table was right next to the window overlooking the street. It was very pretty, very aesthetically pleasing. So I was pleasantly surprised by this. In general, I thought the place looked like a tiny house, you know, like as if someone had tried to shrink me down, like in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but they didn't do it quite right. And so I wasn't exactly the right size, and so I could fit in the dollhouse, but again, that wasn't their intention, so then everything was still a bit too small. That's the best way I can explain that train of thought. It makes perfect sense, I know. My Domi ordered for us right away because she wanted me to try something on the menu. When I asked her what it was, this was apparently her cue to launch into a 6-minute explanation of what it is by attempting to explain how you make it. This really caught me off guard because when I asked that question, I was expecting a sogogi or doijigogi. It took me about the entire speech to realize that she was explaining how to make it and its historical origins. I'm sorry that I don't remember the name of this food. I attempted to look it up so I could tell you, but I couldn't find it. Basically, it is my understanding that it is finely shredded pork with maybe some duck in it. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure about that last part. Shaped into a patty. This was apparently created so that the king could eat his meat more easily. Basically, it was a Korean-style Salisbury steak made with pork. It was slightly sweet and overall both savory and satisfying, and I don't know why I just used that voice. Also, the banchan was some nice quality stuff, and they had japchae, which is my favorite. After lunch, we walked to the palace, which was a 10-minute walk from our original meeting spot, in the opposite direction. So we had to walk all the way back, and then some. On the way back, we would occasionally stop at some of the street vendors and look at cute, tiny, adorable things like keychains and hair accessories and whatever. One of the places we stopped and looked at was a book shop? Vendor? Stand? They sold books, and they were all like children's books. My Domi picked one up, and it had a picture of a donkey man on it. I have no idea what she said when she picked it up, but we kept walking, so I didn't think too much about it. When she suddenly launched into a Korean fairy tale. Now, I didn't look this up, so I can only tell you the little bit that I understood from when she told it, but basically it was a story about how the king had really long ears like a donkey, and he was really ashamed of it, so he always hid them in his hat, or I guess crown. And then there was this other guy who could play the flute, a flautist, if you will. and I will not. I liked to call them flutists. Flute. Maybe I will just call it a flautist. And somehow he found out the king's secret, so then of course, rational thing to do is hunt him down with the guards, have the guards hunt him down, and he ran into a bamboo forest. I don't really know what the moral of this story was, but I did understand about 70% of what she said. So when she finished, I responded very enthusiastically, and this apparently encouraged her to launch into another Korean fairy tale. I understood about 10% of this story. She was so happy telling this story that I couldn't bring myself to admit that I didn't get it. Here's what I got from that. You ready? It was something about 2 siblings, I think maybe brothers, and a seed. That's the end. I didn't understand anything. I never understand anything. You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. Ha, 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 ha. Alright. Let's get started. Let me just say that a million times. Maverick. My younger brother Maverick. We started walking and when the waitress blah 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 blah. My eyebrows twitching. Did you see that? It stopped. It would stop, wouldn't it? But it is my understanding, basically, that it is finely shredded beef, after lunch. Let me just get all up in the camera. Try that again. Flutists. Flutists. It's really hard to say. Flutist.